Welcome to Christian Medical Lab. Today we are going to discuss about the vitamin B12 and its deficiency. After watching this video, you don't require any additional source to crack MCQ or question on the vitamin B12. So first of all, we will start with the introduction. So water soluble vitamin it is, and it is the largest structurally complex vitamin. It is the only vitamin in our body that contains a metal ion which is called cobalt, and it cannot be synthesized by any plant or animal, only produced by the bacteria and archaea. These bacilli in animal gut produce vitamin B12 by the fermentation process, and it will be absorbed in the body and goes inside the liver or muscle tissue. Eventually the humans consume this meat, liver or dairy product, and they will get the vitamin B12. So humans obtain it through food chain. Now we are discussing about the key historical milestones. So first of all, 1849, Thomas Edison described pernicious anemia. What is it? It is an autoimmune condition in which autoantibodies forms against parietal cell and intrinsic factor, which is very useful for the absorption of the vitamin B12. So without it, vitamin B12 will not absorb. But at that time, nobody was aware about the vitamin B12 and all. After that, 1926, Minot and Murphy show raw liver feeding to the patient of pernicious anemia cures it. So they won the Nobel Prize for that. Then 1948, Cobalamin, which is also called as a vitamin B12, isolated independently by the Focklers and Smith. In 1956, Dorothy Hodgkins determined the crystal structure by X-ray crystallography, and he won the Nobel Prize in 1964. In 1973, total chemical synthesis completed by the Woodward and Eschenmoser. Now we are discussing about the structure of vitamin B12. So it is a structurally complex, largest vitamin in the body. So in the heart of that structure there is a corrin ring. What is a corrin ring? It is a 4 reduced chiral ring bound by the 3-methylene bridge, and at the center of this 4 chiral ring you will find the cobalt atom, and this cobalt atom has 6 coordination bonds, 4 for the equatorial bond for nitrogen of the chiral ring. Lower axis means the alpha axial bond, which is bind to the 5,6-dimethyl benzimidazole nucleotide, and the upper, which is the beta axis, is attached to the R group. R group means the variable group. Now if this R group is a methyl, then it will become the methyl cobalamin, which is a cytoplasmic cofactor for the methionine synthesis. If this R group is a 5 and deoxyadenosine, then it will become the adenosyl cobalamin, and it is a mitochondrial factor for the methylmalonyl CoA mutase enzyme. If this R group is hydroxy, then it will become the hydroxocobalamin. It is an injectable form of vitamin B12. And if this R group is a cyanide, then it will become the cyanocobalamin, which is the synthetic form. We usually give it in the oral supplement. Now we are going to discuss about the dietary sources and requirement. So almost exclusively animal derived, produced by bacteria, but it is available only in the animal. So liver and organ meats, red meat, poultry, fish, eggs and milk dairy products. Now the daily requirement, this is an important question for your NEET-PG, INI or USMLE. So adult 2.4 microgram per day, pregnancy 2.6 microgram per day, lactation 2.8 microgram per day. Now total body store is 2 to 5 milligram, mainly in liver 50 to 90%. And the daily loss is around 1 to 2 microgram. Now the most important part of the vitamin B12 is the vitamin B12 absorption. So now you take food with the vitamin B12. Now this food will go into the stomach where the gastric acid and pepsin are present. And this gastric acid and pepsin will work on your food and they release vitamin B12 from your food. Now at acidic pH, heptocorrin from your saliva binds with the vitamin B12. This vitamin B12 cannot bind to heptocorrin if the pH is not acidic. That's why your stomach has to produce lots of acid. It has to concentrate that acid. Otherwise, this heptocorrin will not bind to the vitamin B12. So now at the same time your stomach has the parietal cells and they will release the intrinsic factor, and this intrinsic factor cannot bind to the vitamin B12 if there is a heptocorrin. Heptocorrin is there to protect vitamin B12 from the acidic environment. Now this heptocorrin and vitamin B12 complex will come inside the duodenum, and here your pancreatic proteases will act on heptocorrin, they will degrade it and vitamin B12 will release from it. Now this vitamin B12 will bind to the intrinsic factor, which is the best bond. Now this vitamin B12 and intrinsic factor complex travels to terminal ileum. And here in a terminal ileum there are the cobalamin receptor on the enterocyte. So they will bind, this intrinsic factor B12 complex will bind to this cobalamin receptor, and this cobalamin receptor will internalize their cell inside the enterocyte. This is called the endocytosis. And here inside this vitamin B12 will release from this complex because the intrinsic factor will be degraded by the cytoplasmic enzymes, and this released free vitamin B12 will bind to the transcobalamin 2 TC2 inside the enterocyte, and it will form the hollow transcobalamin. So TC2B12 complex, and these complex will go inside the liver via the portal vein, and then eventually liver will send this vitamin B12 with the transcobalamin 2 to all tissues. If you are good at absorption mechanism, then the causes of vitamin B12 deficiencies are easy for you. How? So, you know that first you have to take the diet which is rich in the vitamin B12. So, first cause is the inadequate intake of vitamin B12 rich food. So, strict vegans are not even taking the dairy products. Vegetarians can get vitamin B12, but their diet are sometimes poor because they are not taking the dairy product. Third cause is infants of the vitamin B12 deficient mother. This food will come inside stomach and gastric acid and pepsin will act on that food to release vitamin B12 from the food. Now your stomach is not good at producing the acid, then it will called as the achlorhydra, where no acid production is there. Now your acid production is exaggerated, so that you will take the proton pump inhibitor H2 blocker to counteract that production of the acid. So antacid. So antacid will reduce your acid. And third is the atrophic gastritis. All these impair the release of vitamin B12 from the food. And then the heptocorrin will bind to the vitamin B12 and it will come inside the duodenum, where the pancreatic proteases will damage the heptocorrin and release the B12 to get attached with the intrinsic factor. Etiology number 3 is a pancreatic insufficiency, where the pancreatic proteases are not producing an amount to degrade the heptocorrin. So chronic pancreatitis is the cause. After that, the vitamin B12 binds with the intrinsic factors. So lack of intrinsic factors is the fourth leading cause, and here the pernicious anemia is the most common cause, where the anti-parietal cell antibody, anti-intrinsic factor antibody will be there. If the stomach is not there, how can we produce the intrinsic factor? So gastrectomy and gastric bypass surgery can cause vitamin B12 deficiency. After that, the vitamin B12 and intrinsic factor complex travels to the terminal ileum. If the terminal ileum is not good, then the absorption will affected and the deficiency will develop. So Crohn's disease, ileal resection, tropical sprue, celiac disease, and fish type form, which is called Diphyllobostrium latum, all this cause the absorption defect and induce the vitamin B12 deficiency. After that, the Cobalamin receptor on the ileal enterocyte binds with these intrinsic factor vitamin B12 complex and cause endocytosis. So metformin interfere with this uptake, and the Cobalamin receptor defect seen in the Imerslund-Grasbach syndrome. So in this you will see the vitamin B12 deficiency. Inside the enterocyte, vitamin B12 release and binds to the transcobalamin 2. Okay, so transcobalamin 2 deficiency can cause the vitamin B12 deficiency. Now the function and the clinical features. So vitamin B12 is a cofactor for two reactions. Reaction 1, methionine synthase. So methionine synthase is present in the cytoplasm, and the main work is to transfer the methyl group from the N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate to the homocysteine. That's why homocysteine will convert into the methionine, and this 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate will convert into the tetrahydrofolate. Now this methionine will convert into the S-adenosyl methionine, which is the universal methyl donor, and by this methyl donor there will be a DNA formation mechanism, then myelin formation, all this will take place in the body. Now the clinical feature associated with this first reaction, you can see here that methylcobalamin is the cofactor for the methionine synthase. Here, if the vitamin B12 deficiency is there, then the homocysteine will not convert into the methionine, so that there will be no adenosyl methionine, no methyl donor for the DNA synthesis or myelin synthesis. That's why the impaired DNA synthesis will take place and RNA synthesis will continue, because there is no need for that. So no DNA and more protein synthesis. That's why the cytoplasm will get bigger, and no DNA, that's why no mitosis. So megaloblastic anemia will seen in this place. So you will find the megaloblastic anemia, and here nuclear cytoplasmic asynchrony will seen. Feature due to the anemia, fatigue, dyspnea, pallor, palpitation, pancytomania in the severe cases, and mild jaundice with the raised LDH you will find. Now the reaction number 2, which is the methylmalonyl-CoA mutase, which is seen in the mitochondria. This methylmalonyl-CoA will convert into the succinyl-CoA by the help of methylmalonyl-CoA mutase, and the cofactor is here vitamin B12 in the form of the adenosyl cobalamin, and this methylmalonyl-CoA will convert into the succinyl-CoA, which is very useful because it can enter into the TCA cycle and it will produce the energy. Now, if the vitamin B12 deficiency means the adenosyl cobalamin is not there, then this methylmalonic acid accumulation will take place, and this is very bad fatty acid. This abnormal fatty acid will go inside your myelin formation process, and it will produce the defective myelin sheet, and this myelin sheet is very fragile and it can be broken by anything, and it will cause neurological symptoms. Now the tract affected by this mechanism is the dorsal column of the spinal cord, so that you will develop the loss of proprioception and loss of vibration. Also you will affected at the lateral corticospinal tract, so the upper motor neuron signs will be there, neuropsychiatric symptoms are there, irritability, dementia and depression, then the optic nerve atrophy also seen in the advanced cases, and these are the spectrum of the subacute combined degeneration. So very dangerous condition it is. So other clinical features are the beefy red tongue, angular stomatitis, anorexia, weight loss, hyperpigmentation and infertility. So now we are going to discuss about the diagnosis of vitamin B12 deficiency, which is so very easy. So you have to run the serum vitamin B12 level. So you will find that in deficiency less than 200 picogram per ml level is there. Then the most specific test is the serum methylmalonic acid, which is increased, and this is a very best test. Why? Because it can rule out the folate deficiency, isolated folate deficiency. So it will not increase in the folate deficiency. The third test is the serum homocysteine level, which is increased. Then hollow transcobalamin, which is the active vitamin B12, it is also low in the deficiency. If you see the CBC, you will find that mean corpuscle volume, that RBC size, you will find that it is more than 100 femtoliter, and on the peripheral smear you will see the hypersegmented neutrophil more than 5 lobes, and the oval macrophytes will be seen. Then reticulocyte count will be low because of the ineffective erythropoiesis. So you can run the other test also, anti-intrinsic factor antibody, anti-parietal cell antibody for the pernicious anemia. Then you can ask the drug history, is our patient on metformin or antacids. And Selene test, this is an outdated test. Now the management of vitamin B12 deficiency. So principles of management are: first principle, replace the vitamin B12. Then treat underlying cause if pernicious anemia or dietary intake or anything else, diphyllobothrium parasite is there. Third one is the monitor the response, and also the rule out the concurrent iron or folate deficiency. Now you can give the oral supplement for the dietary deficiencies, require a strict follow-up and the consultation. So oral cyanocobalamin you can give 1000 to 2000 microgram per day. The parenteral therapy is the standard therapy for the vitamin B12 deficiency. Here the hydroxycobalamin 1000 microgram intramuscularly given daily for 1 week, then the 1 per week for next 4 week, and then 1 dose per month till correction. So in monitoring you can see that day 2 to 3 your serum potassium will decrease because new RBC will uptake so much of potassium from the blood. Then 5 to 10 days you will see the reticulocyte count will increase, and week 4 to 8 mean corpuscle volume, which is MCV, will normalize. In months you will see the neurological recovery, but it is a slow and maybe incomplete. That's why the early management is the best option in the vitamin B12 deficiency. You must treat this deficiency at earliest, otherwise the nervous system will be heavily injured. So please don't forget that monitor serum potassium is a must. So that's why you should do it with the proper consultation, not do it by yourself. Even if you are a doctor, you should consult the MD medicine doctor before taking this injection. Okay, so monitor serum potassium is a must because you can end up your patient in ICU. So thank you so much for watching this video entirely, and hope you like this video.